I want to share my story of how biofield testing came to be, not just the science, but the journey and the frustrations, the breakthroughs, and the realization that the conventional procedures I had relied on for decades were no longer enough. I practiced chiropractic for over 40 years. In that time, I've treated and tested more than 400,000 patient visits. And when you see that many people, you start noticing patterns. You notice subtle ones, you notice stubborn ones, and sometimes really disturbing ones. Around the late 1980s, I noticed that something I had always depended upon was beginning to change. People were presenting with problems that were simply not behaving the way problems used to. Their symptoms were becoming more complex. Their responses to my care were less predictable. And the old tools, the ones that had served me faithfully through my first years in practice, were suddenly missing things. I didn't know it at the time, but what I was witnessing was the systematic rise of epigenetic stress. Negative environmental influences seemed to be accelerating. People were being exposed to more chemicals, more EMFs, more emotional load, more allergies. And yet our heritage testing procedures were still acting as if nothing in the outside world had changed. So obviously, this represented a crack in my analytical foundation. Initially, I tried to simply adapt certain parts of the conventional muscle testing procedures I had used for years. I tried to make them more sensitive and more responsive. But no matter what I did, I kept running into the same wall. The tests were just blind to the environmental changes. They simply couldn't acknowledge them. I recall one patient in particular, Sarah, a woman whose symptoms were clearly environmental. Her body was reacting to something, but every conventional test said she was just fine. I tested her nutritional supplements, her organs, her reflex points, her structural alignment. Everything seemed normal, and yet she failed to improve. It was during this period I realized the problem wasn't the patient. The problem was the testing method. I was obviously missing important information that my techniques were never designed for. And since the analytical tests are always designed to measure something specific, we needed a different way to test that included additional information sources. The muscle testing I was using was only listening to the parts of the body that it was designed to listen to. But of course, that did not include the biofield, the energetic environment that surrounds and informs the body. And if the environment is responsible for over 98% of eventual disease, then ignoring it meant ignoring the biggest part of the story. So I stayed open to the possibilities. I rationalized that although the system I was using wasn't perfect, I was still helping people to some degree. The breakthrough came in a simple statement from my brilliant young receptionist, Autumn Smith. As a student of nutritional therapy, she had learned that the body's cells came together to create the tissues, which then created the organs and the organ systems to eventually create us, the organism. She even offered a possible solution: create a new system that used digitized cellular information to find the challenged cells before they developed into suboptimal tissues and organs. That process automatically put us 2 steps ahead of the current testing systems that focused only on the reflex point information from organs and glands. Autumn's question changed everything. We then began experimenting with ways to utilize the person's biofield as a new additional communication source to modulate our new quantum conversation. Now we had 2 new information sources to integrate into our testing to allow the cellular energies to speak through the muscle response test. I stopped pushing the old paradigm. I stopped trying to get the body to answer questions that it didn't have the authority to answer. Instead, using 190 different cellular energies, I started asking the biofield which cells were reacting. And then the next question, what were the cells reacting to? That became a 3rd layer of additional information. Then we began to consistently measure the biofield expansion and balance, which became our 4th new information source, as well as the most dependable objective finding. Improved clinical results were immediate. The test muscles that had stubbornly failed to communicate effectively suddenly began to spill out new layers of information. Patients who struggled to improve with conventional organ-based testing began providing clear, consistent healing responses. And the information we were getting was deeper, more precise, and more actionable than anything I had seen in my career. And that was the birth of biofield testing. What finally clicked was the realization that the biofield was not just an accessory, it was actually the operating system of human health. It's the environment in which all cells are alive, all genes express, and epigenetic messages are interpreted. Additionally, the more comprehensive and effective the information sources, when combined with the best solutions, came together to create better clinical results, which eventually led to our impressive research findings. Once I understood the value of a vast network of communication sources, everything else fell into place. Biofield Testing's muscle test was not a strength test. Instead, it became a fabulous communication tool. When the biofield encounters something harmful, the test muscle tells you. When it encounters something supportive, it lets you know that too. It is simple, elegant, and profoundly accurate. It works because it is based on the scientifically proven truth that your environment, not your genes, determine your long-term health. That is called epigenetics. The word literally means above genetics.